Okay, so we're going to go over here, guys, just the outline and expectations for this particular project. So it's going to be similar to how the toxin project worked, okay, except there's not going to be a societal part of it because, well, there's no societal impact of your plant, most likely, okay? So here's what we're going to do. We'll just go over the expectations here. So make note, guys, of a few things that must appear in your report, okay? You're examining the growth patterns and adaptations of a plant of your choice. You can choose any plant you want as long as it is a terrestrial vascular plant, okay? So that means kelp can't be done because that's seaweed, okay? And we would be looking at not using like moss or anything that would be non-vascular because then it doesn't have the same adaptations that we've talked about. All the stuff we've talked about had to do with vascular plants. So you could look at like giant sequoia or peas or carrots or potatoes or there's any number of plants. Just make sure it's a plant. Mushrooms are fungus. They're not a plant. Okay, inevitably somebody hands in an entire research project and it's about a fungus. Okay, and yeah, it's kind of difficult to do all of this when your organism isn't photosynthetic. Kind of important part of plants. So, okay, so the examination should include, first off, a description of the plant's native environment, okay, and thus the conditions that it must adapt to. Right, so you need to talk about where it grows and what are some of the challenges of growing there. Okay, that will lead to a detailed description of how your plant grows, adapts, and deals with those things. So talk about maybe how it seeds. Okay, is it, the seeds are encased in fruit and these special birds eat the fruit and they carry it away and poop out the seeds and they grow. Okay, as weird as that sounds, that's actually how a lot of plants get seeded. Okay, in fact, there is a plant in the tropical rainforest that is going extinct because it depended on the dodo to disperse its seeds, and the dodo is extinct. Okay, the seeds of this particular plant could only germinate after they had gone through the digestive tract of the dodo. Right? They were so dependent on each other that when the dodo went extinct, this tree will go extinct now too because it can't seed itself. Okay, it's weird stuff, but those are really rare instances, but they can happen. Right? So you'll be looking at any tropisms it may employ. Obviously, all plants use tropisms, but talk about them in general. How it may distribute its roots. Is it a tap root? Is it a fibrous root? Okay, those kind of things. Look at its leaves. Okay, tell me about what kind of leaves it has. Are they like bladed leaves? Are they needles? If it's grass, are they blades? Okay, things like that. Talk about maybe how their shape is adaptive or if they help to conserve water. Okay, talk about the structure of those things, roots, leaves, and stem. Okay, also, how does it compete with other plants in its environment? Okay, so obviously most plants will just try to overgrow their competition, but there can be cases where some plants will actually have other adaptations. For example, have you ever noticed how very little grows underneath a spruce tree? Like if you have a big mature spruce tree in your yard, there's like basically nothing growing underneath it. Okay, that's because when the needles fall off, they're acidic, and they actually will make the soil too acidic for most things other than the tree itself to grow. Okay, and so that's a way for it to keep other organisms from competing where its roots are. Okay, so there's all kinds of different ways to do that. You can also talk about any special adaptations that your plant may have that prevent it from being eaten or just damaged or just plain survive in its environment. Okay, things like, like the eucalyptus tree can have all of its foliage burned off, its bark singed, and it'll grow back. Okay, it has a very porous bark that allows it to withstand high temperatures. If you're looking at carnivorous plants, so this plant can catch and eat bugs, all right, and that's different, or whatever. So your project, for the outline of your project here, your project, you need to report on the structure of your plant. Is it a flowering plant? Is it a conifer? Okay, we don't want to do moss, we said, okay, because it's not a vascular plant. What are its specific needs in terms of light, water, soil, and nutrients? Okay, so does it need, a lot of moisture, or can it grow in the desert, or, is there specific conditions that it has to have? Describe, again, we talked about this, the conditions it has to survive and how it does this. Okay, use your knowledge of plant structure, so the stuff we've talked about in class, phloem, xylem, all that kind of stuff. Growth and development, and illustrate how your plant species is unique and how it is adaptive. Okay? In terms of growth and development, And life cycle, okay, be specific. So we want to talk about that. We highlighted it up here as well. Okay, describe how the plant's seeded, how it develops, what conditions it may be necessary for it to occur. Like, you know, some of the pine trees we talked about, whose cones don't open until they've been burned. Okay, those are conditions needed to seed. How does it grow as a sapling, okay, or a sprout? You know, is it an annual or a perennial? Okay, so does it grow quickly or slowly? Okay, stuff like that. What age might it be considered mature? Describe whether your plant, like I said, annual, perennial, evergreen, deciduous. So does it lose its leaves or keep its leaves? Okay. Environmental influences, again, we talked about describe the conditions in the plant environment, how it can affect its tissues, competing organisms, predators, okay, or parasitic organisms, okay, that might be present, and how it resists or fights them. Okay, is fire, flooding, drought, freezing a concern? Remember, those are the periodic disturbances that we talked about. Okay, factors affecting plant growth, things like that. Okay, visual aids. Your project must contain pictures and diagrams. Okay, if you know, obviously you want to have pictures of the plant, but if you can find maybe like pictures of the plant as it's growing through its life cycle or things like that, those are all going to be helpful when you're talking about that part of the project. Okay, so have lots of visual aids in there. Graphs and charts, you know, if you can find them of growth rates or things like that, that's good too. Or maybe if you're looking at one whose population is in decline, you could maybe find a graph about, you know, how endangered it is or something like that. Now, for citing references, this project has a real tendency to have plagiarism problems because you're just reporting on this, okay? You're not really coming up with a lot of your own ideas on this one, okay? You're finding the information, you're putting it in your own words, but that's it. Make sure you're putting it in your own words, okay? It can't be copied and pasted from somebody else's website, okay? That's plagiarism. Read their stuff, okay? Write down some notes about what you got from there, okay? And then put it in your own words. Everybody follow me, okay? It's pretty easy to tell when it's not, okay? So please make sure that you're doing that. And then citing your references. This was an area that we had trouble with on the toxin project. Okay, so make sure that when you are citing your references, you have the author's name, the date it was posted or published. Okay, the name of the article, the name of the website, the URL of the website, and the day you accessed it, not October 29th, 1995. October 31st, or sorry, November 1st, okay, 2018, okay? Make sure you have that stuff on there.
Do you have to cite like images from Google?
Yes, okay, you do have to cite pictures, right? So yes, you do a Google image search, but it's not Google that's giving you those pictures. They're posted on somebody else's site. So when you do a Google image search, they'll be over on the right-hand side. When you click on the picture, it opens up kind of a second, like half window, right? And you can go visit website. That's the button you want to click. Okay? It'll take you to the website where that image is hosted, and then you can find the information, usually the photographer's name instead of the author, okay, and that kind of stuff. Yeah, obviously there won't be an article name unless it's part of an article, then you can cite that as well. If not, then if they have a name for the picture, you know, like Pretty Flowers or whatever, okay, you can put that in there in place of the name of the article. Okay. All right, so yeah, good question, because you will be using a lot of pictures, so make sure you cite those. Okay, the other place where people lost marks the last time was here. A lot of people just plain forgot to do it. What should you do today? Yeah, okay, do your planning today. It's supposed to come first. That's how planning works, okay? It's like Prometheus and Epimetheus, right? Forethought and afterthought, okay? We want this to be a forethought, okay? So what am I looking for in terms of planning? Same thing I was looking for on the toxin project. You have a choice. You can either do an outline or a thought web, okay? Whichever one you want to do, okay? The outline should say, you know, here's the topics that are going to be covered and maybe, you know, what paragraph they're going to be in or how you're going to tie them together. Something that shows you thought about the layout of what your project's going to look like. Okay, if you're doing the thought web, name of your plant in the middle and all the topics or ideas that you're going to research about it, okay, coming off in little bubbles from there. That's one thing. The second thing is your timeline. Okay, you need to have a timeline that tells me when you plan to or when you actually do work on this project. So there should be a November 1 and a November 2 on there, okay? Because you're working on it these days, you're doing research, doing your planning, okay, whatever it is, okay, just write down what you did. Okay, November 1st, listen to Codere Drone for a while, then I started on my research and I did my planning page and blah, 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 okay? Write down what you do each time you work on it. Okay, those are the things I'm looking for. Make sure you include them. That's 5 super easy marks. Okay, super easy marks. So make sure you do it because it's, again, one of those things the English department tells us is an important part of the writing process. So we're supposed to include it. Okay. All right. So you're going to be marked in, the scope of this, guys, between 1,200 and 1,600 words. Okay, you got a lot of stuff to cover here. Okay, so you're going to need to write a bit more than you did in the toxin project. So 1,200 to 1,600 words is, kind of the you could do a good job of it in that amount. Okay, if you go to 2,000 words, okay, 3,000 words, no, I'm probably not going to read that far. Okay, you should be able to do this in like 2,000 words or less. Okay, so between 1,200, 1,600, that's kind of the ideal range. Okay, but if you're handing in a 10-page thing, I'm not going to read it all. Okay. All right, so 5 areas that you'll be marked in. Your planning, 5 marks. Okay, analysis and interpretation. So talking about the adaptations of your plant, all that kind of stuff, 5 marks. Okay, your communication, how well did you communicate that stuff to me? Okay, are you using good scientific language or using good terminology? Okay, all of that is part of that. Research and investigation. Okay, so that's your bibliography or your references cited. Make sure that you have everything you use cited in there, right? And then overall is just your format, your creativity. Okay, did you find good pictures and diagrams? Did they help support what you were saying in there? Okay, was it full of spelling mistakes? Was it one long sentence? All that kind of stuff. Okay, that's part of the overall. So it's out of 25 marks. Any questions before you get started? Okay, when you're picking your plant, if you're not sure it's one you should do, call me over and ask. Okay, rather than get started and have 2 days worth of work done and then have me go, oh, well, no, you can't do that one. Okay, if you're not sure, ask. Okay, have at her.